amongst themselves. One of those is professionalism, and we've also identified responsiveness in ensuring that we provide quality service within time and of the right within time and of the right quality to the clients that we serve. And we also identified integrity to ensure that we uphold the correct ethical standards and honest behavior when we are offering services and also conducting ourselves within the organization. Next slide. During the strategic planning process, we did a situational analysis to ensure that when we are coming up with the plans, we are responsive to both the internal and external environment, and that we have put in the right interventions to respond to the challenges that are experienced within the environment in order to ensure that we are on track in achieving the set outcomes, as well as realizing the impact that have been identified or is anchored on our strategy map. When we did the situational analysis within the external environment and aligned to the priority on priority 2 on economic transformation and job creation, the department identified strategies and interventions and using infrastructure for economic growth. And some of the programs that have been identified is your refurbish and operate program, and also implementation of the National Infrastructure Plan 2050, which also identifies the 62 special infrastructure projects. And I think the detail will also be reflected when we go through performance information. Another challenge is on the transformation of the construction and property sector. And again, working with the CIDB, Construction Industry Development Board, the indicators that are addressing promotion of employment of women in construction, and also through the implementation of the preferential procurement policy in the department. So these are some of the strategies that have been identified. In terms of unemployment, we have programs within the construction program management that are looking into infrastructure projects that will be extended to a number of sectors, including construction, and also creation of employment through the special integrated projects, and as well as the EPWP on job opportunities. Next slide. Internally, we looked into the challenge and scourge of gender-based and violence within the country, and the department is also contributing, especially on the national strategic plan for GBVF, and through the provision of buildings for use as shelters and temporary housing accommodation for survivors of gender-based violence. And we also the support through the EPWP to the participants, and also using our buildings for messaging to create awareness on the issues of GBV. And we also identified to improve organizational performance and create a culture of high-performing organization, the implementation of the human resource plan through the recruitment drive to ensure that we have the requisite skills within the department, and also the target of a vacancy rate to ensure that the department has a low vacancy rate and that requisite skills are employed within the department. And in terms of the area of ICT is to accelerate the digital transformation through the implementation of the approved ICT strategy, and also automating most of the business processes within the department. And again, members and chair, this will also be indicated as we go through program performance information to indicate how it is translating in a form of indicators and targets. Next slide. On program performance, next slide. Thank you, CFO. In terms of the structure of the presentation, as presented, we are aligning to the 7 priorities of government, and we also have the 7 outcomes of the department. And when we, in the presentation, we then indicate firstly, the priority of government that the outcome is responding or aligning to, as well as the MTSF indicators and Minister's Delivery Agreement. We are also guided by the outcome indicator that is reflected in the strategic plan, which also reflects the 5-year target. Now the APP aligns to the strategic plan as well as the 5-year target by further breaking down the 5-year target into 3 years so that it is measurable over time. So in terms of the outcome 1, which is resilient, ethical, and capable state, it looks into aligning people, processes, and systems, and also ensuring that we create a culture of a high-performing organization. We have identified areas, and we're using a balanced scorecard at a strategic plan level to identify indicators that we will monitor over the period to ensure that the organization is moving towards being resilient, and we're having ethical and capable people that will be able to deliver and ensure that the organization performs accordingly. So in the APP, we have identified 7 indicators. 1 is talking to ethics and fraud perception rating, as indicated that we have a value on integrity, and we want to ensure that the right ethical standards and fraud is deterred within the organization. So we have a target over 3 years for the perception to be low, between the 0 and 20%, and below you have the annual targets over the 3-year process. So what is reflected on top is the 3-year target, and below is the breakdown of the target. So in terms of the indicator on compliance rate, we have a basket of key compliance matters that were reflected in the legislative area of the presentation. And we are looking at making sure that we are 100% in monitoring that we are always compliant with the regulatory frameworks. And we also looked into the performance information level, where we are to be on 81 and 100% in terms of the targets that we have set. What is also important that we have identified the vacancy rate as indicated in the strategy section, where we were responding to the internal and external, the challenges within the internal and external environment, and we have targeted to be on 10% and below in terms of the vacancy in the department. We also, in terms of the ICT strategy, have identified areas of automation that will be tracking over the 3-year period. By 3 years, we target to be on 100%, but incrementally we are moving from 50%, 80%, and 100%. Next slide. This then presents the quarterly breakdown from the annual target below. I want to bring to the attention of the committee in terms of the quarterly breakdown, where there are no targets that are reflected. We do have operational plan activities that are taking place that we monitor and track on a quarterly basis. And when we do provide progress reports, we indicate those activities in the operational plan so that we give to the committee and other oversight bodies comfort in terms of the work that is taking place and that is being tracked to ensure that the target is achieved by the end of the year in the annual report. So even though there might not be any targets that are reflected, they are monitored on a regular basis, monthly and quarterly, to ensure that these activities are taking place and they're reflected in the operational plan. I won't go into the details of the quarterly targets as it breaks down the annual targets that were indicated in the earlier slide. Next slide. Outcome 2 is on integrated planning and coordination. And in terms of it's aligning to the priority 5 of government, and we have identified the indicator or national infrastructure plan developed as we were linking it to, again, giving effect to economic transformation and job creation. And the supporting APP indicators, we've got approved sector plan, which gives, which monitors the concurrent function that I also alluded to earlier. And we have a target of revising the sector plan so that it aligns with the next administration. But also we have how we monitor it, the sector performance reports that also looks into the indicators and targets that are reflected in the sector plan and provides regular reports in terms of how the sector is faring and if the indicators and targets that have been identified are on track. And this report feeds into the structures like your MINMEC, as well as also to other oversight bodies. We also have the under this particular indicator, spatial justice on strategic plan, and we have supporting indicators that tracks this particular outcome indicator on spatial justice, and these, as indicated, are looking into linking to the outcome on spatial integration, human settlement. And we have one of those indicators, we have a number of government presence development plans that are aligned to the NSDF, and in order to give effect to the smart city principles. We also have the indicator on hectares of land released within the DPWI portfolio, and the annual target is looking at the hectares on 31,953, and below is the breakdown of those hectares over the 3-year period. Next slide, please. Again, these are the quarterly targets that shows how the indicator will be monitored on a quarterly basis. It is aligned to the annual target and specifically for the 23-24 financial year. I won't go into the details of the quarterly breakdown. On the next slide, on sustainable infrastructure investment, the outcome indicator talks to infrastructure investment as a percentage of GDP. And this is looking into number of construction projects that are coordinated within the construction project management branch, as well as the work that is done through ISA to look into investment and bringing in public sector, private sector to then invest in the construction projects. In terms of percentages, for the public sector is 7% contribution, and for the private sector, 18%. However, when you look into indicators, the indicators are linking to this particular indicator indirectly, firstly by looking into efficiency indicators. And these indicators are managed through, again, the construction management program. We're looking into, it's important that we look into the number of design solutions that are completed for identified user departments, and also number of projects that are completed within agreed construction period. And this is an indicator that is measuring again turnaround times, and also ensuring that we ensure that projects don't move beyond the scope. And therefore, it's important that, especially having the challenges of projects that have delayed for some time and have gone beyond the agreed period and time. So this is one of the indicators that is looking into the efficiency in terms of the agreed construction period. And on 8.3 is number of infrastructure projects within approved budget. And the target of those projects is, and in terms of the breakdown, in year 1, it's 106, year 2, and year 3, it's 107. And these, again, on infrastructure sites that are handed over for construction period, we have a target of 508 over the 3-year period. And lastly, we have a number of infrastructure projects that are completed. And we have a target of 329 over 3 years, and the breakdown is reflected below. Next slide. Again, this is the breakdown of the quarterly targets for year 1, 23-24. Next slide, CFO. We also reflected on the construction of Welisizwe bridges, and with the target of 96 bridges to be constructed. And this is the program that is coordinated through the PMO program within the department, working together with Department of Defense, as another important program that will ensure that rural bridges are constructed to ensure that to assist in terms of accessing markets as well as opportunities. Now, in terms of this is the breakdown to ensure how it will be, how the bridges will be constructed over the 23-24 financial year per province. And also it's breaking down into the quarterly targets to indicate which bridges per province will be constructed. Next slide. On outcome for productive assets, we looking into within the PMTE, ensuring that in discharging the mandate of the department, we're looking into the indicators that are tracking the facilities management in terms of maintenance of building, lease management, as well as raise and within the value chain in the PMTE. These are indicators that are also reflecting on the real estate management services. And in the first indicator is the private leases, reducing the private leases within the security cluster. And within the 3 years, the target is 28, and incrementally over the years, there's a target of 8 and 10 in the second and third year. And also it's important that the department has identified increasing in terms of revenue streams that have been identified and savings that can be realized through private leases. And we have a target of 400 million over the 3-year period. And also percentage increase in revenue generation through letting of state-owned properties. And we have a target of 20%. And it's a target that will be maintained through the financial year. And also using our unutilized buildings, there are 484 unutilized buildings that have been targeted to be let out over the 3-year period. And in the first year, it's 34, then 134, 150 and 200 by end of the 3rd year. Next slide. Next slide, CFO. Thank you. Again, the indicator also looks into I think you're already on the quarterly targets, but I think I can talk to this slide. It's fine, CFO. If you look into another area, is the immovable asset register and ensuring its accuracy. There we have identified number of immovable assets to be physically verified as indicated to validate existence and assess conditions. And in the first year 23-24, the target is 22,273. And I think it's also what I wanted to bring to the attention of the meeting. And again, we have a number of condition assessments that will be conducted, and these assessments informs our maintenance strategy so that we move from unscheduled to more scheduled maintenance. And I think the buildings that have been and properties that have been targeted is 242 in 23-24, and also the condition assessments of critical components like your lifts, boilers, air cons, and the target is 484. Next slide, CFO. Yes, thank you. Outcome on transformed built environment is responding to, again, in the external environment, the transformation of the industry. And we're looking into 3 indicators. The first one being on improving the participation rate. And these are the interventions that were highlighted in the earlier slides under environmental, external and internal environment. And the first, at strategic plan outcome level, we have identified in the participation rate of 25%. And we looked into the indicators that are supporting at APP level. We've got within the REM space, the percentage of leases awarded to companies with categories A, B, and C of the approved property empowerment policy, and the target there's 25. Also percentages of leases that will be let out to companies of triple BEE of 4 and above. And on the second indicator under this outcome, built environment skills to address the skills gap, working with professional services together with the 6 professional build councils. We have within the program on professional services in the department, number of beneficiaries participating in DPWI's skills pipeline intervention programs, and the target of 3,700 over the 3-year period. Next slide. The other indicator which is important is to ensure that there are appropriate legislative support to the built environment that will, in order to give effect to the transformation, and especially to ensure that we achieve the target of 25% over a 5-year period. And the first target is to look into the Expropriation Act as well as the Public Works and Infrastructure Bill. For the APP, already the expropriation bill introduced in Parliament, and already there are parliamentary processes that are taking place. And in terms of the target, as indicated, that there are already parliamentary processes, and currently the bill is before the NCOP. And another target is the introduction of the Public Works Bill submitted to the minister so that it is introduced to Parliament. And this is the target that has been set over the 3 years. And I think in terms of the breakdown, for year one, they'll be reflected in the quarterly targets. And when we also look into the amendment of the Construction Industry Development Board Act of 2000, over the 3 year target, we have the CIDB amendment bill submitted to the minister to introduce to Parliament. Next slide. And also the Infrastructure Development Act amended to be submitted to Cabinet. And the first target will be the Infrastructure Development Act Amendment Bill introduced to Parliament. And on the Development of Public Works General Laws Amendment and Bill, also the target is to submit to Parliament. Next slide. These are the quarterly targets and reflects that within year one, 2023-24, how the target is breakdown. If you zoom into 4.2, Public Works Bill submitted to Minister to introduce to Parliament. In 23-24, the department will focusing its activities towards the draft Public Works Bill being revised, and in Q1, draft bill, Public Works Bill developed, and by Q2 it will be gazetted for comments, so that in Q1 the Public Works Bill is revised. So in Q3, in the previous slide, we're reflecting the work that will be done over the 3 year period, but the most important focus is on the breakdown for year one that will detail the activities that will be taking place in the first year. And I think as we progress, we will be then providing in terms of now activities for year 2 and year 3 as we present our other EPPs. Next slide. I think this is still quarterly targets. We can move to the next slide, CFO. On optimized job opportunities and having EPWP as one of the initiatives to create work opportunities, we at APP level, we have a number of progress reports on the EPWP reporting system that are valid and validated work opportunities reported by public bodies, and we present quarterly these progress reports that details the work opportunities that have been created per sector. Next slide. This is the breakdown of the work opportunities per province and municipality that have been targeted, and that when we report, we'll be providing progress against this work opportunity. Firstly, we have the provincial work opportunities and the municipalities. At provincial is 349 and 26, and by municipalities, there's an estimated target of 258 and 49. Next slide. And this is the breakdown at national level of the work opportunities that will be created within the 23-24 financial year. And in the table, we then have the aggregated figure of work opportunities that will be created by all spheres. That's within municipal, provincial, and national. Next slide. Our last outcome is on dignified client experience. And this is looking at the quality of service delivery and improving in terms of how we, the services that we offer to our client departments, and also how we interact with the public. And we then have the indicators, especially within the prestige, the number of planned state events supported by movable structures. And we're also looking into percentage of immovable assets provided within 120 working days after approval by prestige clients. And we're also looking into number of preventative maintenance contracts to reduce the reactive maintenance, so that, as indicated, the condition assessments is to look into increasing more preventative maintenance, which is more scheduled and planned maintenance as opposed to reactive maintenance. Next slide. Again, this is the quarterly breakdown of the, especially for the annual target 23-24. Next slide. We also reflected, as alluded to earlier, on the institutional indicators that the organization needs to monitor if we are to fare well in terms of the outcomes that we have achieved and realize the impact that we wanted to have in terms of how we discharge our mandate and how the organization is performing. In terms of outcome 1, that is talking to resilient, ethical, and capable, we looked into cybersecurity to ensure that our systems are well protected and ensure that there won't be any intrusion in our ICT environment that will disturb how we operate, as it has been a growing trend to have this cyber intrusion on the data and data breach of organizations. So part of the mitigations that we have identified is real-time analytics, and also that IT is enforcing security protocols. Also, on the part of being resilient is responding to external shocks and natural hazards, as we know the COVID-19 and the systems that we have in place to ensure that there will be continuity at all times. We have business continuity plans, disaster recovery plans that are in place to respond to this particular outcome. Fraud and corruption, as it's monitored by the indicator again on ethics and fraud perception, we're looking into, once we have received those surveys, what are the mitigations that we are putting in place? It's assisting us that we know the perception rating, and we also then put awareness and training, consequence management, and also tracking it through the anti-corruption hotline. On integrated planning and coordination, that is skewed towards the ensuring that there is well coordination, especially of the concurrent function. We have identified perceived stakeholder interference, interest, and influence, and this is the challenges or the risk that is always experienced when coordinating the 3 spheres of government, because of some of the legislations and that might be and programs that might not be well aligned, that it becomes important that they're identified and there's better alignment within when discharging or coordinating the concurrent function. So we have our forums like your MINMEC, technical MINMEC, and other stakeholder forums that we use in order to ensure that there's alignment, there's coordination, and moving towards working in silos. On sustainable infrastructure investments and looking into the construction management project, we identified the project hijack, also termed construction mafias. And this is to ensure that there is always buy-in at community level. So we have social facilitation programs. We also have stakeholder forums that are taking place and using law enforcement agencies if needs be. Next slide. On productive assets, it's important that the infrastructure and asset failures that is this risk has been identified so that we ensure that there is proper maintenance in place and to ensure that in terms of to avoid infrastructure asset failures, then we have term contracts that are in place to ensure that there's continuity in maintenance of public or state buildings. And also in terms of construction, we're looking into having proper project preparation. It's done also through the assistance of ESA scenario analysis and also monitoring how projects are faring. We're looking into project risk assessments reports as part of mitigating if the risks if we are in danger of the risk materializing. On possible lockouts by landlords that will hamper service delivery, especially for client departments. We've got stakeholder engagements between landlords and DPWI that are taking place on a regular basis, and we also have dispute resolution committees. On transformed built environment, we have identified the possible collusion and fronting, and we have put some of these policies, empowerment policies and monitoring, ensure that there is policy implementation so that we then mitigate this particular risk. And we also identified again that perceived stakeholder, because we are coordinating within the sector to ensure there's transformation, that there is alignment and that we ensure that programs are aligned and that the targets as set out in the approved sector plan will be achieved. So also this particular risk applies within the transformed built environment. Outcome 6, the demand risk for certain designated group, and this is within the EPWP, where you have identified a risk that the youth might not or other groups might not be aligning with the program, and it's important that we then create awareness about the program so that there's more participation from those groups. And lastly, we have under dignified client experience, reputational damage. Again, it's important that we ensure that the right service and quality service is constantly offered to our clients. And so we look into where the reputational damage to ensure that their media statements and also communication alerts on the good work that the organization is doing, and also have service level agreements with client departments to ensure that the department delivers the right quality service as agreed and uphold to the standards that are in the SLAs. Thank you, honorable members and the colleagues from DPWI. I will hand over to our colleagues in finance. Thank you, CFO, for your assistance.
Thank you very much, Ms. Karabo. Chairperson, I'm with Aaron Mazibuko, who will be presenting the budget for the main vote, and Mayor Prinsloo will present for PMTE. Dr. Mazibuko, over to you.
Thank you, CFO. Good morning, Chair, and members of the Select Committee. Chairperson, I'm going to present the DPW budget for 2023 ENA, and the slide that we are in, it is a summary in terms of the programs and the economic classification. Chairperson, if we focus on the 2023-24, you will see that the budget for the department is 8.8 billion for 23-24. It's increasing to 9.1 billion for 24-25, and for 25-26, it's increasing to 9.6 billion, Chairperson. Now, in terms of the programs, program 1, which is the administration, for 23-24, the budget is 555 million, increasing to 586 to 595. Program 2, the average is 60 million. Program 3, EPWP, it's 3 billion, increasing to 3.2, increasing to 3.4 billion for 25-26. And for program 4, property and construction industry, policy and research, it's 5 billion for 23-24, increasing to 5.2 to 5.5 billion in 25-26. As you can see, Chairperson, program 4, it is the biggest one in terms of the allocation. And the reason why program 4 is the biggest, this is where the bulk of the transfers for the department are sitting, with the average of 4.4 billion allocated for the PMTA, and the remaining balance goes to other entities of the department, which are your CBE, the IDC for the implementation of the ISA budget, your CIDB, and the Agreement South Africa. Chairperson, I must indicate in the same program, this is where the budget for infrastructure South Africa is allocated, and for 23-24, 24-25, and 25-26, Chairperson, we received additional money, which is 200 million per financial year for the project preparation. The last program, Chair, it is Prestige, and the budget for 23-24, it's 61 million, 24-25, it's 66 million, and 25-26, it's 70 million. Maybe, Chairperson, if I go back to EPWP, approximately 2.4 billion average per financial year, it's allocated for the transfers, and the transfers are for the implementation of the EPWP program. And the transfers relate to the non-state sector with the 1 billion average budget. And the second one, it will be the integrated grant for the municipalities. And the other one, it will be the social sector program budget. And the last one, it will be integrated for the provinces. So there is a slide, Chairperson, that indicate all these transfers that I'm just mentioning in this slide, where we are providing details in terms of how much is allocated per transfer. Now, in terms of compensation of employees, Chairperson, the budget allocation for the 23-24 financial year is 587, increasing to 602 to 640. I must indicate, Chair, that under the compensation of employees, we did not receive funding that will be utilized to appoint any additional capacity. But the budget that we have, it is a budget that will ensure that we don't overspend as a department. Under goods and services, we have 695 million for 23-24 financial year, 707, and 739 for 25-26. Chairperson, if you look on your left, specifically if you look at 22-23, you will see that the department is allocated 496, and the budget is increasing to almost 700 million. So it's an increase of 200 million between the two financial years. And that increase specifically relates to the 200 million that I indicated that it's allocated for the project preparation, which is managed by Infrastructure South Africa. So over the medium term, under goods and services, we have 600 million that is allocated as additional. Besides the 200 million, we did not receive any additional funding under goods and services, Chairperson. The transfers and subsidies, it's 7.5 billion for 23-24 financial year, and for 24-25 financial year, it's 7.8 billion and 8.2 billion for 25-26. Chairperson, I will not be going into details in terms of the items under the transfers and subsidies. As I've indicated, there is a slide that indicates how much and where the budget will be going under the transfers and subsidies. The last items under the budget allocation, Chair, it's payment for capital assets. This is the allocation that we are using for the procurement of the laptops and office equipment, including the domestic equipment, which will be for the residences. Now, for 23-24, Chairperson, we have 8.7 increasing to 11 million and to 12 million for 25-26 financial. As you can see, Chair, it's almost 50% decrease compared to the budget that we have for 22-23. The reason for the decrease is linked to the procurement of the assets, because the assets are not being consumed the same as goods and services. Now, the breakdown, Chairperson, which is the next slide under the analysis, I've already indicated how much is going to compensation, how much is going to goods and services, and how much is going to EPWP. So I will not be going through slide number 36. Slide number 37, it is part of what was presented by Mesebati, because under slide number 37, it touches on the target in terms of what will the money be buying, which is the same with slide number 38 under the intergovernmental. It just lists the activities in terms of what the department will be doing with the budget that is allocated. And it will be the same with slide number 39, Chairperson. We'll go to slide number 40. In slide number 40, this is the transfers that we have received. As I've indicated, PMTE, it received 4.5 billion for 23-24 financial year. The budget is increasing to 4.7 and increasing to 4.9 billion for 25-26. This is the huge budget that is reported under Program 4. The second one is CIDB, Construction Industry Development Board, with the budget of 80 million, increasing to 84 million, increasing to 88 million for 25-26 financial year. Council for the Built Environment, the CBE, the budget is 55 million for 23-24, increasing to 57 and to 60 million for 25-26 financial year. Commonwealth War Graves, this is the contribution that the government is making to the Commonwealth Commission. The budget is 30 million for 23-24 financial year, increasing to 31 and 32 for 25-26 financial. Parliamentary villages, this is the transfer to provide support to the members of the parliament in terms of the transportation, and the budget is 6.7 million, increasing to 7.2, and 25-26 to 8 million. The Construction Education Training Authority, 571. This is the levy that the department is paying to the one of the SETAs that is linked to construction, and this budget is linked to compensation of employee budget, and it's 597,000 for 24-25 and 624 for 25-26. Agrima South Africa, one of the entities for the department, the budget is 34 million, increasing to 36 and 37 for 25-26 financial year. The Industrial Development Corporation, we have 111 million for 23-24 and 115 million for 24-25 and 119 million for 25-26. The budget allocated here, Chairperson, is for the technical support to support the ISA, which is the Infrastructure South Africa. So some of the programs are implemented in the department, but the bulk, they are, especially the technical support, they are being implemented through IDC supporting the department. Under the EPWP, Chairperson, we have the grant, which is the integrated grant for municipalities, 781 million for 23-24 financial year, 816 million and 853 million for 25-26 financial year. We have the second one, which is the integrated grant for provinces, also under the EPWP. The budget is 435 million, increasing to 454 and to 474 for 25-26 financial year. We also have under the EPWP the social sector incentive grant for provinces. The budget is 426, increasing to 446, increasing to 466 million for 25-26 financial year. With the last one, Chairperson, as part of the EPWP, it is the non-state sector program with the budget of 1 billion increasing to 1.1 and to 1.1 also for 25-26. The remaining budget, Chairperson, this one is allocated to the department. As we have indicated, we have under program 2, the budget that is allocated for the non-employees for the bursaries. And this is, I think it's 6 million per financial year average that is sitting in program 2. The balance for the household, Chairperson, relate to the leave gratuities that have been projected over the medium term. Thank you very much, Chairperson, for the PWP.
Yeah, fine. Good morning, Chairperson and members of the Select Committee. This is Juanita Prinsloo, and I will be presenting the budget of the PMTE. The PMTE gets as Mr. Mazibuko has already indicated in his presentation, that we do get a transfer from DPW. In the 23-24 financial year, that will amount to 4.5 billion, and it will increase slightly to 4.6 and 4.8 billion in the years after that. In total, the budget that we are projecting in terms of revenue will be 23.8 billion rand in the 23-24 financial year, and this will increase in the 24-25 financial year, but then it will decrease again in the last year. This is due to the devolution of municipal services, the payment of municipal services to client departments. Currently, we are doing it on a recoverable basis, but we have slowly but surely been devolving this functionality to the different client departments. And based on the project plan that we have currently in 2025-26, we will no longer be recovering this from the different client departments. It was never an appropriated budget. It's been done on a cost recovery, but it will have an impact on the total cost projection for the entity. The only appropriated amount, as I've already alluded to, is the DPW transfer. Everything else is recoverable from the client departments. Accommodation charges, user charges, the third one from the top, which amounts to 6 billion in the different financial years. That is based on the user charges of the accommodation being occupied by the client departments, and all of the other items are recoverable items. It is as we spend it, we do recover it from the client departments. When we move to the expenditure portion of it, per program, again, we are projecting for 23-24 financial year 23.8 billion. The biggest program is the real estate management services, which has the bulk of the budget at 13.9 billion. Included in this is the municipal services, property rights, and operating leases, and that is why their budget is basically half of the total budget. If we look then at construction project management, they do the implementation of construction projects as well as refurbishment projects. And then facilities management is the third largest program, and they are responsible for cleaning, gardening, maintenance, and other repair projects. If we look at the economic classification on current payments, we are planning to spend in 23-24 a total of 17.8 billion. And this will increase over the NTF to 18.9 billion, and then it will decrease again to 12.6. Again, this decrease in the last year is because of the municipal services that we would have devolved by that time, and we will not be paying or recovering it any longer. An item of interest maybe is the compensation, which we are budgeting 2.1 billion, close to 2.2 billion in the 23-24 financial year, and that slightly increases to, basically it remains at 2.2 billion if you round it over the NTF period. On our transfer payments is property rights. That is our only transfer payment. This will increase in 23-24 to 1.9 billion, and then increase based on the increases we're expecting from the local governments to 2.2 million, and then 2.2 million in the in the outer year. Capital payments, we are expecting to spend 4.1 billion rand in 23-24. Of this amount, 1.8 billion is client capital. This is a recoverable amount and budgeted for on the vote of the different clients. We are planning to spend 1.3 billion rand on refurbishment and close to 1 billion rand, 985 million rand on DPW related infrastructure. We also have an amount of 45 million rand allocated for machinery and equipment. What is of importance also is to say that, and I think I've touched on it on the first slide, that the biggest portion of our budget is funded by the user departments. And if they do not pay, one of the challenges that we're experiencing is if they're not paying the user charges or the recoverable projects, we have commitments that we cannot honor. Also, if we take the budget in line with the APP, which is sometimes something that we are requested, a lot of our budgets are cannot be directly aligned to the specific targets in the APP, the budget as listed above. For instance, if we look at cleaning and guarding or repairs, these are projects that is running, and it's not necessarily a link to the performance of the department. If we also look at property rights is a big portion of our budget, it's 1.9 billion rand, but notwithstanding the performance against the targets in the APP, this is a tax and this is something that we have to keep on paying. So we can be spending 100% of this budget, but it might not be relating to specific KPIs in the APP. In summary, included in our expenditure items over the medium term, 17.1 billion is allocated for infrastructure projects. We deliver these projects for 24 departments, including correctional services, police and courts, and office buildings. And then as part of this, we have also planned to spend 19 million rand on retrofitting to allow access for people with disabilities. Overall, 41.3 billion is allocated for property management functions, which includes repairs and maintenance of state-owned buildings, payment of municipal services, as well as payment of private leases. I think I've touched on the details of these when I went through the different schedules. And then just 8.1 billion is allocated to the operational expenses of the entity. Included in this amount is 414 million, which is allocated towards ICT projects. And this includes the digitization and modernization for projects such as the asset register. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. I don't know if DG got any points of emphasis before we allow members to ask questions.
Yes, Chairperson, just to indicate that we have a bigger challenge, as you can see, with the budget, and considering the fact that the envelope is actually shrinking and not increasing, and yet we have quite an aged portfolio, which requires innovative ways. And one of the key things I think Karabo spoke to, but was not emphasized significantly, is a shift in policy that looks at the involvement of the private sector in investment in state facilities through a pilot program we're starting called the Refurbish, Operate and Transfer. And this has been our key shift in as far as among the key new things we're looking at, because if Treasury cannot give us additional funding for what essentially is a backlog in maintenance and what needs to be done to our buildings, and as they are crumbling and being vandalized around us, we need to find innovative solutions to this bigger challenge. And we believe that that program would be best once we start rolling it out in the current financial year to assist us with turning the situation around. So that's the key area of emphasis I thought we should speak to, because it has a significant policy shift in as far as our way of operation. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you very much, DG. At this stage, we'll then allow members to ask questions. Any hands? Can I ask Mr. Stoller to take off the presentation from the screen? Thank you.
If I may, Chairperson, I couldn't raise my hand for some reason.
Okay, you can go ahead, Honorable Dango.
Yeah, Chairperson, just on process, I've got quite a few questions, and possibly I will ask the questions, and possibly if the principles are not there, is that the response should come through either from the administration or from the principals at some time or another. Not necessarily today then.
Okay.
Chairperson, my first question is on the overall matter. DPW1 has clients, departments which are widespread, and business processes automation, as indicated in the 2023-2024 technical indicators, eliminates or minimizes human intervention to improve operations, which businesses will process activities and prioritize such for automation. If I may go on, Chairperson?
Yeah. Now you can ask as many questions as you want.
I then want to go on to outcomes 2, which is the integrated planning and coordination. It's recommended that the department be requested to provide the committee with copies of the government precinct development plans for the purpose of further oversight. A second question on that is that the department may be requested, I think we want to request the department to elaborate on the smart city principles that will be incorporated into the government's precinct development plans, as this might have lessons for future smart cities projects. A third question regarding that is, a number of smart city projects have been announced recently. What role, if any, does the department have in respect of the infrastructure requirements and the client department's requirements for such smart cities? These projects includes the following. 1, the Mooikloof mega city, Pretoria. 2, the Nkosi city adjacent to the Kruger National Park. 3, the Durban Aerotropolis. 4, the Lanseria Smart City. If we can get a response to that. Then I think we go to outcomes 3, which is sustainable infrastructure and investment. In respect of indicator 9.3, the department previously emphasized that the delay on the part of organs of state is in paying outstanding debt affects the financial viability of the property management trading entity. The department reported that the options in respect of improving payments, including declaring intergovernmental disputes or liaising with the AG to resolve such matters. In respect of 9.9, is there currently a pipeline of projects or initiatives that will benefit from the release of the land from the DPWI portfolio and that can be listed and be provided to the committee for the purpose of further oversight? In respect of indicator 10.1, the 2023/2024 APP reflects an annual target of 12, whilst the presentation indicates 10. So the department may be requested to confirm the correct target. On outcomes 5, the transformed built environment. What are the key objectives to be introduced through the Public Works Bill? What are the critical infrastructure projects? Plan 8 of 2019 includes important provisions for the safeguard of critical infrastructure. The APP does not appear to reflect any indicators related to the implementation of the Act, particularly Section 26 of the Act, which states that a person who does the following commits an offense: hinders, obstructs, or disobeys a person in control of a critical infrastructure, taking any steps required or ordered in terms of this act in relation to the security of any of critical infrastructure. On outcome 7, dignified client experience. The medium-term expenditure framework includes DPWI as a leading or coordinating department in respect of the target that all schools identified through SAFE programs have sanitation meetings with minimum infrastructure norms by 2024. Many of the schools are included, and how many of those schools are in the SAFE program? May I stop there, Chairperson? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honorable Tango. Are there any other questions from other members of the committee?
Chairperson, I don't have any question. I was covered by Honorable Dango. Thank you.
Okay. Any other members?
Thanks, Honorable Chairperson. I think I'm also covered by Honorable Dango. He has said a mouthful. Thank you.
Okay, no, that's fine. Maybe I can take some also. I think there's an issue, DG. It's good that you are part of the meeting, because there are issues. I noted that you also indicate that you do take some of the recommendation that we make. We have been raising this issue in previous meeting, but we don't see it reflected in the report. For example, I would say under administration, normally other departments call it administration or corporate services. The issue that we normally raise, there are quite a number of issues. One is a percentage of expenditure on the procurement of goods and services from SMMEs. We want that to be reflected in the administration or management sections. The payment of all compliant invoices within the 30-day period that is not reflected. Most departments, including the one that you came from, DG Transport, used to indicate all of this. The percentage of staff establishment train as per the department skills plan, that is normally reflected in the APPs of other departments, including transport. Number of bursaries managers in under finance section. There's an amount of bursaries that is indicated, but we don't see in terms of the performance indicators and also the number of people involved. You just see the amount that is allocated in terms of rents and cents. The percentage of the resolution of reported incidents of corruption. But the other issue is the filling of vacancies. I saw that in quota reports, there's an indication that some of the work could not be done because of non-filling of the priority vacant positions. I see that under program management on ethics and fraud, I just want to check what is participant that you conducted the surveys on. But I know that there's a reduction now in terms of the target. Previously, you had 41 to 60%, but now it's gone down to 20 to 40%. If we could get clarity with regard to those. On PWPs, I just want to find out, I think in the quarter report, there was an indication that the program was being withheld with regard to transfers to some provinces. I just want to know if the problems around that have now been addressed. We, on the vacancy rate, we appreciate that you have moved from 11% now, which was the case in the previous APP, to 10%. The other issue I think I raised is, I think with regard to the administration or management, is also the allocation. I spoke about the procurement for the small businesses, but also the president in one of the SONA, he indicated that 40% of procurement should go to women, but also there should be a percentage to young people. I see in the presentation you talk about some of these decisions that we are implementing that arise from the Lekgotla that talks about the young people, but we don't see any allocation that is dedicated to the youth. The one other issue I want to check, maybe the update, DG, on the small harbor. We were once told that that there will be a small harbor at Port St. John's. I come from the Eastern Cape. Last year, the caucus said the program in PSG. We were briefed about with regard to this issue of a small harbor in Port St. John's. If we could get an update with regard to that. But also, I hear that you're talking about the program that will focus on refurbishing and also transfer. In Port St. John's, there are a lot of vacant properties of the department, but the municipality said they have been engaging with the department so that those empty buildings could be transferred to them. I don't know whether this will be part of this program of refurbishing and also transfer, whether those will then be transferred to the municipalities or provinces. But just general, because there are a lot of these properties, some of them are dilapidated now. I don't know if you have an idea of how many are they in the whole country. There's an issue that we also raised last time. I don't want to feel like I'm representing personal issues or members with regard to the parliament villages. I am not now. I stay at Laboria Park. The area, the level of dust, because it's in the sandy soil, I would say, the dust that goes inside the houses. So we suggested last time, because even those who are cutting the grass are not cutting the grass, they just cutting the soil, because there's no grass that is growing there. We suggested last time, the acting DG at the time accepted that, and that it's a matter that they were going to consider, which could save in the long term money for the department if these villages, some areas within the villages, not all, that if they could be paved, at least because there's no grass or lawn that is growing in those areas. Yeah, I think those are the questions I wanted to ask. I see that there's also the hand of the chairperson of the committee. Over to you, Honorable Moima. Oh, no, it's Honorable Dango. Dango, are you?
Yeah,
Is it
if I may come back,
okay.
Your questions have prompted other questions. Can't we swap the grass in Acacia Park for the no grass in Laboria Park? We have too much grass there. We have gophers and snakes come from the gophers. So I think they just need to be aware of that. Two is the question of Parliament itself. What is the progress upon that, about the refurbishment of Parliament, the rebuilding of Parliament, and generally repairing it after the fire? Thirdly, Chairperson, the question of insurance. Now, I know that the state self-insures. Are we self-insuring in all respects, or is there some areas where we're actually going out to insure such properties? I think particularly of the property in Berlin, and I think of the property in London that could be worth billions. Are we self-insuring that, or is that being insured through an outside company? Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Honorable Tango. I think that there's one issue that that was in the last under management, that was in the last APP, which relate to the number of beneficiaries participating in the PWI Skills Pipeline Intervention Program. I see that is no longer part of the APP. If we could also get a response to that. Thank you very much. Over to you, DG.
Thank you very much, Chairperson, and thanks a lot for the questions that have been posed. I will answer the bulk of them and then ask my colleagues to come in and respond to some of them. We will indeed supply the copies of our development plan for precincts, and we will provide for all the currently proclaimed precincts that are there. And with our current flagship precinct being Salvokop, where we are a bit much more advanced, and we are already at where we are at phase 1 of the implementation of the project and rollout, and where we are essentially doing the servicing the land and doing access roads and the preliminary planning around it. And we will then move to phase 2. We are already in the contracting phase for phase 2 to commence with the construction of the offices. 6 departments have already signed up for that precinct, and we are already talking also with districts as well as metros, and we are also talking to provinces that we harmonize our efforts in as far as this is concerned, and that we do not have a scenario where we have buildings side by side, but that we offer a comprehensive plan for all of our precincts. We will provide the development plan as well as the concept note around this, as well as the update reports on where we are with each and every one of the proclaimed precincts. The other matter is that indeed we can confirm that our current precincts that are being planned, they are being planned around the principles of smart cities, and with looking at several key issues. First and foremost, the facilitation of ease of movement of people as well as traffic and the flow thereof. And also we are looking at the issue of safety, and we're also looking at multi-use of the precincts that we have, and that they are designated as such, and that they are not just government offices, but they are also supporting the commercial activities around them, and they also coexist in peace with the neighboring facilities. And we also indeed in this regard embrace the issue of green buildings, and we are looking at the new buildings that we're building, particularly at Salvocop, being at a minimum of a rating of 5 stars in terms of green building accreditation and rating tool. And we are quite keen on ensuring that our planning goes beyond in terms of the planning nodes and circles. We are looking at the outer circle being at the radius of up to 100 kilometers. And that tells you how thorough we are in looking at the pull forces in terms of the town planning aspects and in terms of where the plans of the cities in which we plan to develop these precincts are actually themselves pulling towards. And we also use this to bridge spatial divides and to also encourage integration of communities and the ease of with which people do. And most importantly, these are places of work, and therefore the environment and the considerations around both the design as well as our approaches embraces the smart city principles in as far as ensuring a healthy balance of work, play, as well as stay. And therefore, indeed, we confirm that we are incorporating the principles of smart cities into our precincts planning. I also need to indicate that, yes, indeed, in terms of the smart cities that are being planned, the mega ones, we play a significant role, and also through ISA, we also play a role of troubleshooting where we find challenges. If I may use Mooikloof as an example, in as far as this is concerned, you would recall that the commitment of the investment has been made, but there is a challenge that in the east of our capital city, Tshwane, we have a challenge in as far as bulk services and the supply of water, as well as its reticulation in the area, and also of access roads, and ultimately of enough supply of energy in the area. And to that extent, we are aware that we have been asking the Treasury for a catalytic fund that will help us invest in these services that in return will unlock the major investments that would follow to make this developments a reality. Not only are we participating in the steering committees herein, but we are also at both political as well as administrative level have been chairing the steering committees that is looking at troubleshooting the challenges that are there in as far as the cities or the planned smart cities developments are concerned. And one needs to also indicate that while each of them that Honorable Dango has pointed out too have different challenges at this stage, and they are at the different planning stages, we nevertheless are looking at all of them in totality, and we are tailor-making our responses to each and every one of them, together with the presidency, the Treasury, as well as the IMC that has been established to troubleshoot challenges faced up by these cities. One needs to indicate that there are new innovative instruments. The Treasury has finally accepted the wisdom of what we're trying to do. And they have, however, not agreed with us on the establishment of a separate catalytic fund. They have, however, introduced new instruments to support our quest in making these cities a reality. And amongst some of the offers that they've put forward, it's on the front loading of budgets. And they have put a mechanism in place now that will allow cities like Tshwane to actually utilize ahead of time of allocation budgets that are committed in the future, and that those budgets are front-loaded now to be able to unlock this development. And with the Treasury, when they do finalize their allocations in terms of the division of revenue, that those cities would know that they had been front-loaded in advance in terms of what had been allocated for them to do bulk. This now has allowed us to move to even a greater thrust where we now are negotiating uptake agreements with these developers that we do not put in bulk and then they do not follow through with the investment in terms of the development. And such are now being negotiated, and we are putting the bare minimums. For every rand we are putting in, we're trying to leverage as much as 100,000 rands. So you could see that it makes perfect sense in terms of the strategy we are taking. So indeed, yes, we have a key role as a department to play. And together with ISA, we have been driving the process of troubleshooting the challenges and also making sure that the developments make financial and economic sense for the municipalities in which they are being planned to be built in. The issue of a pipeline that exists for the land release program, indeed, we have, through our land provincial land community forums, we are engaging with provinces which are requesting land that is on our own asset register, in which case we are releasing such land. We have been releasing it to several provinces, whether be it for the building of schools, whether be it for human settlements, whether be it for even things such as provision of cemeteries and all of those things. We have been doing that according to the requests that are on the table and based on the pipeline of projects that the provinces themselves and districts and municipalities in those provinces have planned. So consequently, even for ourselves, nationally, where departments other than ourselves are requiring land on our register and also for our own purposes, land that belongs to us in which we intend to build either offices or other facilities of the state. We have a pipeline of this in which we are releasing land for those specific purposes. But we are also beneficiaries as well of where we receive land. If I can give an example, of recent, I've just accepted a donation of land in KwaZulu-Natal for the building of the Marian Hill police station, which the municipality had donated to us. And now we are now in a position based on the needs that were already communicated and which were encapsulated in our pipeline for what we require. There is a whole host of things, and if Honorable Dango says he needs a list of this land release program linked to a pipeline, we should be able to package this information and be able to share it with the committee, and we will indeed do so. On the issue of the critical infrastructure, indeed, we do not have this indicator. This indicator sits with the security cluster, particularly with police, and we are indeed not providing any significant budgets to this, but we do participate in the critical infrastructure subcommittee of the JCPS cluster, and we are active in that as a support, not as a lead department, in as far as what the provisions of the Act adjoins us to do. We are observant of that, and as and when the need arises, particularly where we ourselves, the properties belong to us, we do undertake, it may not be seen as a separate line item, but we do undertake efforts to ensure that we are responsive in that regard. On the issue of all schools in the Safe Schools program and the provision of sanitation, we need to highlight that we had long devolved all the schools, and they are no longer part of our asset register, and they are driven directly by the Department of Basic Education, including on the provision of the program. And even that Safe Schools program is being driven exactly directly by Basic Education. We play quite a minimal role in as far as that, and close to no role at all. And we have looked at the issue of acacia and with the grass that is growing there and what has been happening. We I think in the last month or so issued a directive that the region, our region in Cape Town, should actually process on that. Honorable Khai, I think we must also in the same breath answer your question to indicate that In as far as whether we should replace grass with paving to ensure that we avoid the dust and to contain that. We had been looking at a number of options. Our horticulturists have been advising us on the type of trees we need to plant and how they should be planted and in what format so that they are able to contain dust. But we are also cognizant of the fact that the type of grasses that are supposed to be grown there, it was a wrong thing from the onset to try and replace the natural grasses that naturally occur there with kikui, and it has backfired in a big way, and that is the challenge we're having. But one also needs to point out that of immediate, we have had to work on prioritizing our budget. The former minister, as well as the new one, have pointed out sharply the issue of us running behind schedule in as far as the rollout of the removal of asbestos in these parliamentary villages, and that had become our priority number one. You would then recall that we had already begun with the renovation of and the refurbishment of the parliamentary villages. That program will continue, but we had to reprioritize the budget to purely focus on the removal of asbestos. We have allocated a budget to that extent, and I think if we are to do paving and other related aspects, we should consider it as part of the two bigger programs we are undertaking in as far as refurbishments, or lest we push it a bit to the back burner to perhaps year 2 or 3 of our rollout in terms of this to be able to accommodate it from a budget point of view. On the issue of the insurance policy that we have, indeed, the state is its own insurance, and also SASRIA exists for purposes of looking at damaged infrastructure and so on, in as far as riots are concerned and natural disasters and acts of God. But however, in as far as normal vandalism and all of these related aspects, they do not feature anywhere in as far as that is concerned, and that means that the state needs to fork out the resources to be able to refurbish. And so accordingly, we hold no insurance policies except for in as far as immovable properties are concerned. And we do hold insurance in 1 or 2 aspects in as far as other assets are concerned. And this could be vehicles and other things related thereto as government. But as a department, we do not have any key insurance policies in as far as this is concerned. We do shift the risk though during construction in terms of our processes and the JBCC agreement to force contractors to provide and raise sufficient capital insurance to be able to protect the department should the work not be completed and so on. And this is the new addition we have added to the contracting documents that we now have. On the refurbishment of Parliament, yes, I must also indicate that we have now devolved all properties that are international to DIRCO, and we no longer deal with properties in foreign countries. We do go to assist, and often DIRCO also contractors via the African Renaissance Fund to assist in the building of schools and so on in foreign lands. We do so, and we support that program, but however, all of those assets are not on our asset register anymore, and they are with DIRCO, and DIRCO has its own policies. They do piggyback on the majority of our policy body, but however, they do have their own variations in terms of what they do. I'm also aware that some of their own assets are actually insured in some of those countries, but however, that is not on our asset register at all. On the refurbishment of Parliament, one needs to point out that there are 2 processes involved here too. The first one, Honorable Dango, being the fact that the Treasury has made an allocation of budget, and this allocation of budget was not made in favor of DPWI, but was made in favor of Parliament itself. And we had to look at the provisions of GIAMA. And while Parliament is exempted from GIAMA, but the reality of the matter is that the building itself belongs to us, is our asset. And so while Parliament is not bound by GIAMA, the reality of the matter is that, however, no tenant can actually just move and start changing the building of the landlord and without the consent of the landlord. And that is the principle we had engaged with Parliament around, and Parliament had indicated that they've got willingness to actually undertake the refurbishment themselves, after which we advised each other in terms of the procedures that would need to follow suit. And in this case, the first one is that Parliament had requested our Minister for Custodial responsibility of Parliament itself, and that is provided for in section 19 of GIAMA. It's a long, tedious process by which we have to consult with Treasury, DPSA, and we must still send an item to Cabinet. But we had said so long in order to enable them to start with the work. We have given a preliminary concurrence for them to start work, and they have announced Parliament on their own. They have contracted DBSA, and they have announced that they would commence with rubble removal and all other related aspects, including a temporary roof and things like that, to avoid the winter rains that are now on our doorstep. And again, we have then agreed with them that so long we could consider the provisions of Section 18, which is not what they have requested, and which is actually the assignment of functions in terms of GIAMA, so that they are able to start with that process. And we have since requested that indeed they provide a fresh request for Section 18 process, being the assignment process, and then we will then process both in tandem. And once they have at least the assignment, they can start with the work, but ultimately that the buildings and the precinct are under direct control of Parliament and it's maintained by Parliament going forward and so on, will mean the Section 19 process, which is the transfer of custodial powers. And that too, our minister will consider as and when we do take the process forward. Honorable Khai, I must indicate that while it does not appear as a target, it is one of the things that are monthly tracked here, and which we are also required to report upon even to the presidency and DPME. And on the issue of the percentage of expenditure for SMMEs, I think we could also do an accept report for the committee to have such and to see where we are with this. We also track other things, including how much of that expenditure is not just to SMMEs, but to SMMEs owned by women, owned by disabled people, and owned by youth. And we do that on a month-to-month basis. And I must also assure you that indeed, while we may not be putting it in there, we are one of the best lead departments in as far as the payment of invoices. We hit in the upper 90s each month in as far as the payment schedules for all compliant invoices in this regard. And we have a system, and the CFO could speak to this, called Ria Patala, which actually has been hailed by Cabinet, and Cabinet has even decided that it should be a government-wide system that is utilized to clear invoices and to track and pay for invoices within 30 days. On the number of bursaries, I think we can also provide this information. I think the issue here, Honorable Khai, was that when we were doing the reviews around this, one of the things highlighted by DPME was that our targets were just too many, and that we needed to filter them through, and others will come through the operational plans and other things related thereto, and which nevertheless they remain tracked, and they are being tracked, although they are not featured as a standalone thing, but you would see that the budget for it is provided for. We have in fact ramped up our provision of bursaries and of beneficiaries in this regard. And I must indicate that in as far as the filling of vacancies, we have been hard at work. I think when the last financial year that ended on the 31st March started, we're having in excess of 700 vacancies. We have since reduced that significantly. We managed to fill 310 positions as at the 31st of March, before the moratorium of the new minister kicked in. But we had been doing that. Our only difficulty had been that most of the appointment had been promotions. And once you appoint a person who was an assistant director and they are promoted to become a deputy director, it is an appointment. You have filled the vacancy of a deputy director, but now you immediately have a vacancy of an assistant director, so which negates against your attempt at bringing the numbers down. But just by the sheer volume, and if you compare the 310 with the 78 that we managed in one financial year before this one, it tells you a story of how vigorous and how committed we were. We had to even hire temporary HR practitioners on 36 months contracts to help us just with the recruitment process and with getting the vacancies filled, so that we do not have, and the next financial year, we do not report again about inability to do certain things because critical vacancies couldn't be filled. And I think that has been the trajectory. We are continuing with that. We have just been slowed down by the existing moratorium now, but once it is lifted, we will be back again quite vigorously to fill all the vacancies. As you may know, we had moved significantly. We are now at 10%. That was our target, to be at the norm that public service say all departments should be. But we have now set ourselves even a more ambitious target internally to say that we must actually be in the range of 3 to 5%. And I think that is where we are driving this thing towards. On the issue of EPWP transfers that have been withheld, one needs to say that while it is still a challenge here and there, it is no longer a bigger challenge that it was last year that warranted even the AG to raise it. We have now, during the interim audit, looked at this matter, and the AG had not raised any significant findings about it. Our concern had been on the ability and capacity of the NGOs contracted to deliver in the non-state sector to actually do work and to account for that work. So right now, we no longer have a bigger challenge of transfers and all of that. We have a challenge of ensuring that the quality of reporting meets with the expectations of the AG. And we had, as in response to this, been dispatching to the struggling NGOs, our own staff at head office, to go out to site and to work with these NGOs to support them, and also to increase on the allocation of the IDT to be able to support the work being done by the NGOs quite effectively. On the issue of the small harbors, we will provide the committee with the report. We have prepared one. Fortunately, as we do speak, your sister committee in the assembly is actually on a oversight visit to the harbors. And in this regard, they are busy with that, and we had prepared a comprehensive report for them on the status of all these harbors, including even the status on St. John's. And we will share this report with members so that it becomes more clearer. But however, as you may know, we were slowed down significantly by the damages and the floods that happened in St. John's, and we have been looking of immediate at the repairs that are there, and even more importantly, it will delay our planned program of having an ocean-going pier that is a catalyst for that small harbor to actually become viable. And the report, though, will share greater detail on what we are trying to do in that space, but we will provide this report as well. On the issue of the vacant properties, we are indeed looking at the plan of the ROT, as I've indicated. As I did indicate, we are looking at a pilot first, and we have agreed that we'll pilot in the city of Tshwane. 5 buildings are in the pilot, and we are looking at getting them done through this model to test the waters and see the responsiveness of the market and how well this will go. And once we have learned essential lessons, I think we will take the project to scale. We have already begun identifying our own properties that are due for for such, and that will be viable for this type of intervention. And to that extent, the first 200 have been identified. I need to indicate that in terms of our stratification of our immovable asset register, we do classify our properties in terms of those that are in an excellent condition, those that are in a good condition, those that are in a fair condition, and those that are in a bad condition, and those that really should be condemned, and they are in a very, very bad, and they are not in a usable state, and they need either demolishing and things like that. So we have stratified our thing as such, and our biggest concern is that as we speak, almost 60% of our portfolio is in the 3 lowest categories, in the fair, poor and bad categories, whereas the remainder is what is termed good, and even the smaller portion, which is about 8%, is in the category of being extremely well. So we do know that the challenge is huge, and based on that, we had to calculate a maintenance backlog, and our projections were showing a 19 billion shortfall in terms of what needs to be done. It has spurred us to action to look at different innovative practices, including even temporary land release for with the properties reverting back after they have been utilized. We will pilot all of the possible ways in which we actually can do recovery and do the sorting of these assets to benefit us in one way or the other. We will certainly relook at the issue of the beneficiaries in the skills pipeline, but of import, I can assure Honorable Khai that we are still running that through professional services, and we are having the young cadets program, and we are doing a whole host of things, and we have not stopped. But we can share even the report on that with the committee, for the committee to take comfort that indeed we are we are still implementing this program and rolling it out. But if the committee feels strong, it is the prerogative of the committee to actually, prior to approval, to add and amend the APP, as Parliament is the approving body. And I will leave it at that point and ask if any of my colleagues wish to add that the chair gives us the indulgence for them to do so. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, DG. Any other comments from the management? I think there was this issue of the ethics and fraud. I don't know if you touch on it, DG, that the methodology as well as the target has been dropped from 41 to 60%. It is now 20 to 40%.
Can I ask my colleague, Ms. Sivati, to respond to that?
Okay.
Thank you, Honorable Member. In terms of the ethics and fraud perception, the participants of this survey, it's the DPWI staff as well as external stakeholders. So what we're looking at the range in terms of our targets, when we started, our performance levels and the results from the survey were ranging between 81 and 100, which is unacceptable, especially when you're looking into the prevalence of fraud and as well as our perception as a department in dealing with ethical issues. So as we were putting in interventions over the years, the lower we go, it means that the way we are perceived in dealing with ethics and fraud within the organization is improving. So now when we did the results for our last perception survey were between 41 and 60, and we're putting in interventions that we are monitoring at operational level. Therefore, that's why we had targeted a lower perception rating of 0 to 20%. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Honorable members, are there any follow-up questions? There's a hand C. I don't know what it stands for.
Good afternoon, Chair. I just wanted to add on the EPWP that the issue with regard to withholding, there's been no withholding in the 22-23 financial year. So the matter has been resolved. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Has the KwaZulu-Natal Premier signed off?
On the protocols, no, that's still a discussion currently, Chair, but in terms of the incentive grant, the full allocation in terms of the budget allocation has been transferred as per DORA. Thank you, with no withholding.
Okay, thank you so much. Honorable Dango, Honorable Mosudi, Honorable Mamarkhane, any follow-up questions? Okay, if I see, I think Honorable.
I'm good, Honorable Chairperson, I'm good.
All right, thank you so much. Thank you very much, DG and the team for the presentation of the APP for 2023-2024. And also the responses to the questions of the honorable members. At this stage, I will again ask you if you have any closing remarks.
No, just to be grateful to the committee for the opportunity, Honorable Khai, and to appreciate the interaction with the committee and to once more reaffirm our commitment to accountability to the committee and to seek the committee's wisdom and guidance in terms of what needs to be done and for us to be ad idem about the priorities facing our portfolio as well as our country as a whole. Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Thank you so much, DG. At this stage, on behalf of the chairperson of the committee, Honorable Kenny Moimak, I will also extend the word of appreciation again for the tabling of the APPs. And thank you very much, DG and the team. I don't know where earlier Lupeka called me to say that he has been kicked out, the committee secretary. I don't know if he's back.
I'm back, Chair.
Oh, okay. What's the next item?
Chairperson, the next item was supposed to be the adoption of the minutes.
Oh, okay.
When I look in the screen, it's 4 provinces, 4 members, so we need 5.
Okay, so we defer the adoption
the minutes, yes,
to the next meeting. That then brings us to the end of the meeting. Thank you very much to honorable members and also to DG and the team, as well as the staff of the committee and the staff of Parliament in general, and the PMG. Thank you very much. The meeting is adjourned.